Racist bank teller insults black 8-year-old savings. Mom reveals millionaire status. I don't think this is enough to even open an account. The bank teller's voice carried across the marble-floored lobby, deliberately loud enough for the line of customers behind Jasmine Carter and her 8-year-old daughter to hear. The woman's pinched expression matched her tone as she picked through the crumpled bills and loose change in Aisha's Disney princess coin purse with the tip of her pen, as if touching the child's savings might somehow soil her manicured fingers. We typically recommend a minimum of $500 for our young savers accounts. This is, what? $43.27. Aisha's small shoulders slumped, her bright eyes now downcast at the ceramic piggy bank fragments she'd carefully collected in a shoebox after weeks of anticipation. The shattered pieces represented 6 months of chores, birthday money, and neighborhood lemonade stands. Today was supposed to be special, her first step toward what her mother called financial independence. Instead, it had become something else entirely. But it wasn't the dismissive tone or even the condescending glance that made Jasmine's blood pressure rise. It was the slight smirk the teller, Sandra, according to her nameplate, exchanged with her colleague, followed by the barely whispered typical that ignited something primal within her. The kind of fury only a mother knows when her child is being judged, not for the content of her character, but for the color of her skin and the perceived emptiness of her pockets. What Sandra Wilkinson didn't know as she continued her performance was that Jasmine Carter had walked into First National not just as any mother, but as the silent owner of 17% of the bank's parent company, and the majority shareholder of the commercial real estate housing this very branch. What Sandra couldn't see was the storm gathering behind Jasmine's carefully composed expression, or how this seemingly routine Tuesday afternoon was about to dramatically alter the trajectories of everyone involved. If you're enjoying this story of unexpected justice and motherly protection, please hit that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss what happens next. Ms. Carter, the branch manager, David Atkins, emerged from his office, surprise evident on his face. I didn't realize you were coming in today. Is everything all right? His eyes darted nervously between Jasmine and the increasingly uncomfortable teller. Sandra's expression shifted, confusion replacing condescension as she registered the familiarity between this black woman in casual jeans and a simple blouse and the branch manager who now stood awkwardly beside her desk. Everything is not all right, David, Jasmine replied, her voice steady despite the emotion coursing through her. My daughter and I came in to open her first savings account, and we seem to be having some difficulties with customer service. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as the busy Tuesday afternoon crowd in the bank lobby fell silent, the collective attention now fixed on the unfolding drama. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Even the security guard by the door stopped his casual scan of the entrance to watch. I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding, David stammered, his collar suddenly too tight as beads of perspiration formed at his temples. At 47, he had been managing this branch for nearly a decade, carefully climbing the corporate ladder with political precision. He recognized the potential career catastrophe unfolding before him. Sandra is one of our most experienced tellers. Experience doesn't equal excellence, David, Jasmine replied, placing a protective hand on Aisha's shoulder. And there's no misunderstanding when someone looks at my 8-year-old daughter's hard-earned savings and dismisses them with prejudice rather than celebrating her first step toward financial literacy. Sandra's face flushed crimson as she processed the implications. Mrs. Carter, I assure you that race had nothing to do with Ms. Carter, Jasmine corrected sharply. And I didn't mention race, Sandra. Interesting that your mind went there immediately. The tension in the lobby thickened as Sandra's colleague slowly rolled her chair away, creating physical distance from the situation while maintaining perfect position to witness everything. The customers in line remained frozen, caught between social discomfort and morbid fascination. Aisha tugged gently at her mother's sleeve. Mommy, it's okay. We can go to another bank. Her voice was soft but steady, a testament to the resilience Jasmine had worked so hard to instill in her daughter. No, sweetheart, Jasmine said, kneeling to meet Aisha's eyes. This is actually the perfect teaching moment. She turned back to the manager. David, perhaps we should continue this conversation in your office. I believe Sandra could benefit from some perspective. The walk to the manager's office felt like a procession, with every eye in the bank following their movement. For Jasmine, each step was weighted with memories of doors closed in her face, of being followed in stores, of having to teach her daughter at age 6 how to respond when someone called her a racial slur on the playground. For Sandra, each step felt like walking the plank, her 15 years of banking experience suddenly insufficient protection against whatever storm was brewing. David's office was a shrine to corporate banking aesthetics, faux leather chairs, motivational posters about teamwork, and a desk large enough to establish authority without being ostentatious. As he closed the door behind them, the muffled sounds of the bank lobby faded, replaced by the soft hum of the air conditioning and the pounding of Sandra's heartbeat in her ears. "Please have a seat," David gestured, his customer service smile strained at the edges. "I'll stand, thank you," Jasmine replied, helping Aisha into one of the visitor chairs before positioning herself directly across from Sandra, who had reluctantly taken the other seat. "Ms. Carter, I want to apologize if there was any misunderstanding," Sandra began, her voice adopting the practiced tone of someone who had diffused customer complaints for years. "Our Young Savers program technically doesn't have a minimum deposit requirement, but we generally recommend a larger initial deposit to make the account worthwhile. I was simply trying to save your daughter from disappointment when the quarterly fees would potentially erode her small savings." Jasmine nodded slowly, as if considering Sandra's explanation. "That would be a reasonable justification, Sandra, if I hadn't been standing in line for 20 minutes watching you process new accounts for 3 different children before us. White children, one of whom deposited exactly $37. You didn't seem concerned about quarterly fees eroding his savings." The color drained from Sandra's face as David's eyes widened. "Or perhaps," Jasmine continued, "you could explain why you felt the need to handle my daughter's money with a pen as if it might contaminate you. Or why you whispered 'typical' to your colleague. What exactly was typical about my daughter's $43.27, Sandra?" The silence in the office grew heavier with each passing second. Outside, through the glass walls, curious eyes occasionally glanced toward the meeting, bank employees and customers alike sensing the gravity of whatever was transpiring behind closed doors. I didn't," Sandra stammered, looking to David for support that wasn't forthcoming. "Ms. Carter," David interjected, "I want to assure you that First National takes these matters extremely seriously. If there has been any discriminatory behavior, we will address it immediately with appropriate action." Jasmine turned her attention to the manager. "David, I've been banking with First National for almost 15 years. I opened my first business account here when everyone else rejected my loan applications. I've referred dozens of clients to this institution. And yet, had I walked in today dressed differently, perhaps in one of my usual business suits instead of jeans after my daughter's soccer practice, I suspect we would have received very different treatment." She paused, watching realization slowly dawn on Sandra's face. "What you don't know, Sandra, is that the $43 my daughter brought in today represents more financial wisdom than many adults ever achieve. She saved that money methodically, allocating her allowance into spending, saving, and giving categories. She researched 3 different banks online before choosing First National because of their educational programs for children." Aisha sat quietly, her eyes moving between the adults, absorbing everything. Despite her age, there was an awareness in her gaze that spoke of previous experiences with prejudice, of conversations most 8-year-olds shouldn't need to have. "The truth is," Jasmine continued, "I could have opened Aisha's account with a significantly larger deposit, but the lesson I wanted her to learn today was about the value of her own efforts, not the privilege of her mother's success." David's expression shifted as understanding began to take hold. "Ms. Carter, if I may ask, what is it you do exactly?" A small smile played at the corner of Jasmine's lips. "Currently, I serve as CEO of Carter Financial Group, managing over $4 billion in assets. Previously, I was a senior investment strategist at Goldman Sachs. But most relevantly to this conversation, I'm also a major shareholder in Pinnacle Banking Corporation." The blood drained completely from David's face. "Pinnacle, our parent company?" "Precisely," Jasmine confirmed. "In fact, the quarterly performance review for this branch crosses my desk every 3 months. I've always noted the excellent numbers, David, but I wonder now what those numbers don't tell me about the customer experience here." Sandra looked as if she might faint, her hands gripping the armrests of her chair so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The implications were sinking in. She had just discriminated against the daughter of someone who essentially helped sign her paychecks. "Now," Jasmine said, turning her attention back to Aisha, "I believe we came here to open a savings account." She placed her hand gently on her daughter's shoulder. And regardless of what has transpired, that's still what we intend to do. Because another lesson I want my daughter to learn is persistence in the face of adversity. If you're finding value in this story of standing up against discrimination, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us share more stories like this one. Back in the main lobby, whispers circulated among the waiting customers. The absence of raised voices from the manager's office only intensified the speculation. Eleanor Simmons, a retired schoolteacher who had been banking at First National since 1978, leaned toward the man behind her in line. "Something serious is happening," she murmured. "I've seen that teller before, always had a bit of an attitude. Wouldn't be surprised if she finally pushed the wrong person too far." The man, Vincent Rossi, a Vietnam veteran who had lived through the civil rights movement, nodded knowingly. Some folks never learned that character isn't determined by the color of someone's skin or the cash in their pocket. Lessons long overdue. Inside the office, David was frantically tapping at his keyboard, pulling up the necessary forms for Aisha's new account while simultaneously trying to salvage the situation. "Ms. Carter, I want to personally oversee the opening of Aisha's account. We have a special Premier Young Savers option that waives all fees and includes an educational component with quarterly workshops on financial literacy." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "Is that option typically offered to 8-year-olds with $43, David?" His typing faltered. It's usually reserved for our premium clients' children, but exceptions can certainly be made." "No exceptions necessary," Jasmine replied firmly. "My daughter will open a standard Young Savers account with the same terms as any other child. The preferential treatment you're offering now is just another form of discrimination, positive rather than negative, but discrimination nonetheless." Sandra sat silently, her career flashing before her eyes. 15 years at the bank, approaching retirement, her pension now potentially in jeopardy because of a moment of thoughtless prejudice. She'd never considered herself racist. She had black friends, donated to urban youth programs at Christmas, even voted for Obama twice. Yet here she was, caught in a situation that stripped away those superficial shields and exposed the unconscious biases she'd never acknowledged. "Ms. Carter," Sandra finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I owe you and your daughter an apology. My behavior was unprofessional and, yes, prejudiced. There's no excuse for it." The admission hung in the air, unexpected and rare. Most confrontations like this ended with denial, deflection, or defensive anger. Genuine acknowledgement was uncommon enough that it momentarily caught Jasmine off guard. Aisha looked up at the teller, her young face solemn yet somehow wise beyond her years. "My grandma says that saying sorry means you promise to do better next time. Do you promise?" The simple question, delivered with childlike directness, cut through the tension like a knife through butter. Sandra's carefully maintained professional facade crumbled as tears welled in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "I promise." David cleared his throat, uncomfortable with the raw emotion now filling his typically business-like office. "I've pulled up the account application. Shall we proceed?" Jasmine nodded, but before they could continue, a knock at the door interrupted them. A young security guard, probably in his mid-20s, poked his head in. "Excuse me, Mr. Atkins, there's a situation in the lobby." Several customers are asking what's happening, and Mrs. Wilkinson's line is backing up considerably. David glanced at his watch, suddenly aware that nearly 30 minutes had passed. "Thank you, Marcus. Please inform Heather that she should cover Sandra's window temporarily." As the door closed, Jasmine turned to David. "I have no interest in creating a spectacle, but I do have concerns about how this situation reflects on First National's values." Sandra's behavior today wasn't born in a vacuum. It thrives in environments that tacitly permit it. David shifted uncomfortably. "Ms. Carter, I assure you that First National has comprehensive diversity training programs. All employees are required to. Policies in manuals aren't the same as practices in lobbies." "David," Jasmine interrupted. "Training programs don't change hearts and minds if there's no accountability. What matters isn't what your employees learn in seminars, but how they treat the single mother cashing her paycheck or the elderly black man applying for a home loan." The weight of her words settled over the room. Outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows through the windows, marking the passage of time as this unexpected confrontation continued to unfold. "What would you suggest?" David asked, his tone now genuinely inquiring rather than defensive. Jasmine considered the question. "First, I'd like Aisha's account opened not by you, and not with special treatment, but by Sandra. with the same respect and enthusiasm she would show any child. Second, I'll be speaking with the regional director about implementing mystery shoppers to evaluate customer experiences across different demographics. And third, she paused, looking directly at Sandra, I believe there's an opportunity here for genuine growth and change. Sandra straightened in her chair, anticipating termination, but finding something else entirely. I run a monthly workshop for banking professionals on unconscious bias in financial services, Jasmine continued. Sandra, I'd like you to attend the next 6 sessions and then help develop a branch-specific training program based on what you learn. Your experience today could help prevent others from making similar mistakes. The proposal hung in the air, not punishment but rehabilitation, not cancellation but education. David blinked in surprise. That's remarkably generous, Ms. Carter. It's not generosity, it's practicality, Jasmine replied. Firing Sandra might feel satisfying in the moment, but it wouldn't address the systemic issues. True change requires more than removing individuals. It requires transforming institutions. Outside the office, the bank lobby had returned to its normal rhythm, though curious glances still occasionally flicked toward the glass-walled meeting. Eleanor Simmons had completed her transaction and lingered near the coffee station, unwilling to miss the conclusion of the drama. Vincent Rossi had moved to a nearby chair, ostensibly reviewing his deposit slip but clearly waiting to see the outcome. Inside, Sandra wiped away tears and nodded slowly. I would be willing to participate in those workshops, Ms. Carter, and I want to thank you for not demanding my termination. Many would have. Many have never experienced the consequences of unemployment due to discrimination, Jasmine replied evenly. I have, it helps no one. Now, she turned to Aisha, who had been patiently observing the adult conversation with remarkable composure. Are you ready to open your account, sweetheart? Aisha nodded, her earlier excitement beginning to return. Yes, Mommy. Can I get the bank card with the dolphins on it? You certainly can, Sandra answered before Jasmine could respond, making her first genuine attempt at connection with the child. And we have a special secure online portal where you can watch your savings grow. Many kids find it helps them stay motivated to save more. As they moved back to Sandra's window to complete the account opening process, the lobby fell silent again, all eyes on the unlikely trio. Sandra's hands trembled slightly as she counted Aisha's money again, this time handling each coin and bill with appropriate respect. $43.27, she confirmed, sliding a deposit slip across the counter for Aisha to sign. That's a wonderful start to your financial journey. Aisha carefully printed her name on the signature line, her tongue poking out slightly in concentration. My mom says compound interest is like magic for patient people. Sandra couldn't help but smile at the sophisticated financial concept coming from such a young voice. Your mom is absolutely right, and patience is one of the most valuable skills in finance. As the transaction completed, Sandra handed Aisha her new account information and a small welcome gift, a bright blue piggy bank with the First National logo. This is to replace the one you broke open. Sometimes starting fresh is a good thing. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone present. As Jasmine and Aisha prepared to leave, David approached one last time, extending his business card. Ms. Carter, I want to thank you for handling this situation the way you did. Many in your position would have reacted very differently. If there's ever anything you need, please contact me directly. Jasmine accepted the card with a measured smile. What I need, David, is for my daughter to grow up in a world where her character matters more than her color, and where her potential isn't prejudged by her pocket money. That requires all of us to do better every day. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot as Jasmine and Aisha walked hand in hand toward their car. The tension that had gripped Jasmine's shoulders for the past hour finally began to ease as they moved farther from the bank. Mommy, Aisha's voice was thoughtful. Are you really a millionaire? Jasmine smiled down at her daughter. Yes, sweetheart, Mommy has been very fortunate in her career. Then why did we only put $43 in my account? We could have put lots more. Jasmine stopped, kneeling to meet her daughter's eyes. Because some lessons are more important than money, Aisha. I wanted you to experience the pride of depositing money you earned yourself. That feeling of accomplishment is worth more than any amount I could have given you. Aisha considered this, her young face serious. Is that why you didn't tell the lady you were rich until she was mean to us? No, honey, Jasmine replied carefully. I didn't tell her because it shouldn't matter. You deserved respect regardless of how much money I have. Everyone does. As they drove away, Jasmine glanced in the rearview mirror at the imposing brick building of First National Bank. The confrontation had been uncomfortable but necessary, not just for Sandra's education or Aisha's dignity, but for the countless unnamed customers who would come after them. 3 months later, Jasmine sat in her corner office overlooking the Atlanta skyline, reviewing the quarterly performance reports from various Pinnacle Banking Corporation branches. When she reached the metrics for David Atkins' location, she noted with satisfaction that customer satisfaction scores had improved significantly, particularly among minority clients. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Sandra Wilkinson. "Fifth workshop completed today. Working with regional team on new training protocols. Thank you again for the opportunity to make things right." Jasmine smiled, setting down her phone as her assistant announced Aisha's arrival from school. Some lessons weren't measured in dollars and cents, but in changed hearts and shifted perspectives. And sometimes, the most powerful response to prejudice wasn't punishment but transformation. As Aisha bounded into the office, proudly clutching her latest bank statement showing her savings had grown to over $100, Jasmine was reminded that her greatest wealth wasn't in her investment portfolio or real estate holdings, but in the character she was helping to build in her daughter, a young girl who had witnessed both injustice and redemption before her 9th birthday, and who would carry those lessons forward into the world she would one day help shape. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps us continue creating meaningful content that addresses important social issues while entertaining and inspiring our audience. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to bringing you more stories that matter.